Mackenzie Dern walked out of the octagon at UFC 321 exhausted, bruised, and emotional, but finally holding the UFC strawweight title she's been chasing for years. After 5 grueling rounds with Virna Jandiroba, the Brazilian-American grappling specialist claimed a unanimous decision victory and secured the vacant belt once held by Zhang Weili. It was a fight defined not by dominance, but by grit, adaptation, and heart. A back-and-forth battle between 2 elite jiu-jitsu practitioners who spent much of the night testing each other on the feet instead of the mat. When the final horn sounded, Dern wasn't sure if she'd done enough. "Not that I wasn't confident," she said afterward, still catching her breath during the post-fight press conference. "I felt like I did everything I could do, but it's the judges. You never know. I wanted to get the knockout or the submission so there'd be no question." In the end, one judge saw it 49-46, while the other 2 scored it 48-47 for Dern, giving her the narrow but decisive edge in the most important win of her career. For fans who expected a high-level grappling chess match, the fight was a surprise. Much like their first meeting back in 2020 when Dern also took a decision, most of this rematch played out on the feet. Jandiroba, the physically stronger wrestler, was able to take Dern down several times, but she struggled to hold position or inflict significant damage. Dern, meanwhile, showcased improved boxing and cage control, landing the cleaner, sharper strikes throughout. Every time Jandiroba pushed forward, Dern's counterpunching and movement made the difference, the kind of stand-up composure that's often been missing in her earlier UFC appearances. When Bruce Buffer read her name, Dern broke down in tears. It was the culmination of nearly a decade of hard work, balancing motherhood, public criticism, and the pressure of living up to her reputation as one of the best female jiu-jitsu competitors in history. She said, "I feel sore, but I feel amazing. We left it all out there. It's like a dream come true, but I already have new goals. I know I've got a big target on my back now." That target could soon belong to Tatiana Suarez. The former wrestling prodigy, who came up short in a title bid against Zhang Weili earlier this year, got back in the win column with a dominant victory over Amanda Lemos in September. With Zhang vacating her belt to challenge Valentina Shevchenko at UFC 322, Suarez is likely at the top of the list for the next strawweight title shot. And while Dern didn't call anyone out specifically, she acknowledged Suarez as a potential next step. She said, "I'd definitely like to fight Tatiana. Maybe she gets one more fight in first, but I want to keep facing strong grapplers. That's what excites me." It's a telling statement from a fighter who's always prided herself on testing her skill set against the best. Dern's jiu-jitsu resume is legendary. Multiple-time IBJJF world champion, ADDC gold medalist, and one of the most decorated female submission artists to ever transition to MMA. Yet for much of her UFC run, her ability to adapt that ground dominance to mixed martial arts has been under scrutiny. Saturday night felt like a breakthrough, not because she scored a finish, but because she proved she could win a tough, technical, high-pressure championship fight without relying solely on her grappling. As the new queen of the strawweight division, Mackenzie Dern finally looks like a complete fighter, still grounded in her jiu-jitsu roots, but with the poise and striking to hang with anyone at 115 pounds. She's already thinking about getting back in the gym, staying sharp, and proving her title win wasn't a fluke. She said, "I don't know how much say I have as champion, but whoever the UFC sends me, I'll be ready." For now, though, she gets to enjoy the moment she's been chasing since she first stepped into the cage in 2016. From a BJJ prodigy to a UFC champion, Mackenzie Dern's evolution has been one of perseverance. And at UFC 321, she finally got the payoff she's been working toward for nearly a decade. Jim Miller didn't hold back after watching the chaos that unfolded at UFC 321 in Abu Dhabi. The veteran lightweight, who's been inside the octagon more than anyone in history, saw Ciryl Gane's eye poke on Tom Aspinall and immediately lit up social media, furious that yet another fight had ended in a no contest because of something that, in his eyes, shouldn't be happening at this level of the sport. Miller made it clear that he's fed up with what he sees as a culture of leniency toward fighters who commit fouls, saying this isn't about accidents or gloves, it's about responsibility.
In his Instagram rant, Miller sounded every bit like a man who's been there and seen it all. "Eye gouging, eye poking is a foul," he said bluntly. "If that foul is done with intention, then the fighter that commits the foul gets disqualified if the fight can't continue. But somehow it's never intentional. It's always an accident. Always." He went on to vent that he's had his own vision permanently affected by eye pokes over his long career, something he's learned to live with, but it still eats at him to see others getting away with what he considers carelessness. "The only way this stops," he continued, "is if fighters start getting punished for it. It's not the gloves, it's the culture and the fighters." What struck a nerve for Miller wasn't just the foul itself, but the way fans and even some figures in the sport turned on Aspinall afterward for saying he couldn't continue. He was furious that the blame seemed to fall on the guy who got fouled, not the one who caused it. "The person who was poked in the eye is always the P, always the bad guy," he said. "It's never the one who did it, they're never punished. The guy who can't see, he's the coward now because his opponent couldn't close his fist?" For Miller, the whole mentality is backward, and it's a big part of why fighters keep getting away with things that should lead to disqualifications or at least point deductions. He compared it to how referees handle low blows, noting how quickly points come off for groin shots, yet eye pokes, which can cause lifelong damage, are almost never treated as seriously. He's got quality cups on the market. You get kicked there, you recover, you're fine. But with eyes, that's your vision, that's your career. Miller's outrage carried even more weight coming from someone who's been fighting for nearly 2 decades without ever being known for dirty tactics. As he reminded fans, he's logged over 7 hours of octagon time, the most in UFC history, and he's managed to avoid fouling opponents with eye pokes, even in countless exchanges over 46 fights. If I can do it, everyone can. Look at the list of guys who've spent the most time in the octagon. Me, Frankie Edgar, Clay Guida, Rafael Dos Anjos. None of us are out here poking people in the eye. It's not an accident. You can control it. For him, the fix is simple. Hold fighters accountable. Make it clear that even one reckless poke can cost you a point, a fight, or a paycheck. Until then, he believes things won't change. All you have to do is penalize the person that's doing it. That's how you stop it. You start taking wins and money away, and suddenly everyone learns to keep their hands closed. At 41, Miller has seen every era of the UFC, from the Wild West days of no gloves and wild fouls to the modern, highly regulated sport it's become. But in his eyes, the system still fails when it comes to protecting fighters from one of the simplest, most preventable injuries in the game. His rant wasn't just anger. It was frustration built up over years of watching fighters lose opportunities, momentum, and sometimes their sight because of what he views as sheer negligence. And when a veteran with Miller's record and respect in the locker room starts calling out the system this directly, it's hard not to feel like the sport should finally listen.
Rumors about Justin Gaethje stepping in to challenge Ilia Topuria for the UFC lightweight title have been swirling for weeks, but one of Gaethje's closest teammates has poured a bit of cold water on the speculation, while still admitting it's a fight everyone at their gym would love to see. Archie Colgan, the undefeated PFL standout and a training partner of Gaethje at Elevation Fight Team, recently addressed the reports during an interview on Boke's Talking Bouts, following his own win over JJ Wilson in Dubai earlier this month. Colgan, who's been training side by side with Gaethje for years, made it clear that while he's heard the rumors, there's nothing concrete in motion behind the scenes. "Yeah, we're training partners. I just talked with him yesterday and there's not, as far as I'm concerned, anything official about any of those rumors or reports running around online," Colgan said. "But I hope that's true because, who wouldn't want their guy to get another title shot? Hopefully it all comes together, maybe early January or February, and they lock down him and Ilia. That'd be sick. It'd be a good fight." The idea of Gaethje versus Topuria has already caught fire among fans, largely because it's a stylistic dream matchup. Topuria's sharp, composed boxing and counterpunching against Gaethje's relentless pressure, leg kicks, and brawling explosiveness. Both fighters carry knockout power and crowd-pleasing aggression, making the hypothetical fight one that feels tailor-made for a massive event. Colgan, clearly a fan of the idea himself, said it'd be poetic if he and Gaethje both ended up with gold around the same time. Back to back, we'll both bring the titles back to the gym, celebrate together. Man, what a home run for the team, huh? For now, though, Gaethje seems content to wait patiently for the right opportunity. The 35-year-old hasn't fought since his rematch win over Rafael Fiziev in March at UFC 313, a victory that reaffirmed his place among the elite of the lightweight division. In the months since, Gaethje has been vocal about wanting the biggest possible fights at this stage of his career, ideally something with legacy implications. On his personal X account, he made it clear that he's targeting Topuria specifically and is willing to wait as long as necessary to make it happen. My next fight, I am planning on fighting whenever Ilia Topuria is fighting. I was hoping they would let me fight him in January, but I can't really see that happening now. The biggest question is, when is Ilia fighting again? I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know that anybody except him and his team know the answer to that. Best case scenario now is they just put us on the White House card. That White House card Gaethje referred to is rumored to be the UFC's historic June 2026 event, which would mark the promotion's first show held on the White House lawn, something Dana White himself has teased as part of the UFC's future expansion into high-profile global spectacles. If that's where the fight happens, it could easily become one of the biggest cards in UFC history, pairing a young undefeated champion in Topuria with one of the sport's most beloved brawlers and veteran fan favorites in Gaethje. If things lined up that way, Gaethje could be looking at a 15-month layoff between fights, a long stretch for such an active competitor, but not one that seems to bother him. After years of taking part in some of the most brutal and entertaining wars in UFC history, the extra recovery time could actually work in his favor. The Colorado native has hinted that he's more focused than ever on preserving his longevity and picking his moments wisely. As for Topuria, his own plans remain somewhat mysterious. After his stunning rise to champion status, he's been relatively quiet, with no official announcements about his next opponent. While several contenders like Islam Makhachev, Arman Tsarukyan, and Dustin Poirier have been floated as possibilities, Gaethje's star power and action-first reputation make him a uniquely appealing option both competitively and commercially. Whether it happens early next year or under the bright lights of a supercard in Washington, D.C., Gaethje versus Topuria has the makings of a generational clash, old-school chaos versus new-school composure. And if Archie Colgan has anything to say about it, both Elevation teammates might just return home with belts on their shoulders when the dust finally settles.
Tom Aspinall has shared his first detailed health update since the shocking ending to his heavyweight title defense at UFC 321, where an accidental double eye poke from Ciryl Gane forced the fight to be stopped in the opening round. What was meant to be the British champion's first defense of his undisputed title turned into one of the most frustrating moments of his career, as he was left unable to see and the bout was ruled a no contest after just 4 minutes and 35 seconds. The immediate aftermath was chaotic. Aspinall was quickly transported from the Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi to a nearby hospital, where he underwent scans and medical evaluations. Early fears of a serious injury were eased when doctors confirmed that while both eyes had sustained corneal abrasions, there was no structural or permanent damage detected. Still, his vision was temporarily impaired, and physicians instructed him not to resume any training or competition until he received further clearance from specialists in the UK. On Sunday, Aspinall released a 47-minute video on his YouTube channel that documented the entire day, from his calm, focused pre-fight preparation to the chaotic backstage scenes following the injury. The footage captured his visible frustration and disbelief, particularly when hearing doctors discuss the severity of the poke. "All that training for that?" he muttered at one point, shaking his head. "He got warned twice before it, and he still did it again." The video also showed moments from inside the hospital, including the eye examination itself. In one scene, a doctor delivered cautious but reassuring news. "We didn't find anything dangerous," he told Aspinall. "You should stop fighting until you are cleared from our side, but everything looks like it will recover. We just need to make sure your vision returns fully to normal." The 32-year-old champion appeared relieved but still emotionally drained. "Waiting for further results," he said at the end of the video. "We've got to do some more tests in the UK as well. We're flying back today and we'll go from there." Aspinall's condition has become one of the major talking points in the aftermath of UFC 321, especially after Dana White's post-fight comments stirred controversy. While the UFC CEO later clarified that a rematch between Aspinall and Gane was the fight that makes sense, he initially appeared to question whether the champion could have continued. The remarks drew backlash from fans and fighters alike, many of whom felt Aspinall was unfairly portrayed as unwilling to fight through a serious injury.
White has since confirmed that the UFC plans to rebook the matchup as soon as Tom's medically cleared, acknowledging that the ending was deeply unfortunate. "It's a total pain in the ass, but the rematch is what makes sense," he said. "There will probably be even more interest in it now after everything that happened." For now, the focus remains on Aspinall's recovery and the results of his follow-up medical exams. While he avoided permanent damage, his return will depend on how quickly his eyesight stabilizes, something that cannot be rushed in a sport where vision is everything.
Bo Nickal's rise in MMA has been anything but quiet, and as UFC 322 approaches, the noise around his name is only getting louder. Once touted as one of the most promising prospects the UFC had signed in years, the former Penn State wrestling star has found himself at a crossroads in his fighting career. His shocking second-round knockout loss to Reinier de Ridder back in May reminded everyone that even elite collegiate credentials don't guarantee dominance inside the octagon. Now, with his upcoming clash against Rodolfo Vieira on November 15th in New York, Nickal has a chance to either silence his critics or feed their growing skepticism. The UFC 322 card itself is stacked, but controversy erupted when fans discovered where Nickal's fight had been slotted. During UFC 321, the promotion unveiled the official fight order, revealing that Bo Nickal versus Rodolfo Vieira would occupy the second spot on the main card, right after Leon Edwards and before bouts featuring Sean Brady, Valentina Shevchenko, Weizhang Li, Jack Della Maddalena, and Islam Makhachev. For many fans, seeing Nickal placed that high was hard to swallow. Social media immediately lit up with frustration, with some calling it favoritism and others accusing the UFC of forcing a star that hasn't yet earned his place. Nickal's resume outside the UFC is the stuff of legend. Three-time NCAA Division I champion, four-time finalist, and a key part of Penn State's dynasty years under Cael Sanderson. His wrestling credentials alone justify his hype in the eyes of purists, but in the entertainment-driven world of MMA, reputation isn't built on pedigree, it's built on fights. And after the Ridder loss, many fans feel he hasn't yet shown enough to warrant prime positioning. Comments like, "Get Bo Nickal off the main card," and "How the hell is he getting this treatment?" became common across MMA forums and X threads. Instead of backing down, Nickal leaned into the attention. On X, he responded with his trademark confidence. "Main card, UFC 322. Maybe I have hundreds of thousands of grassroots American wrestling fans, or maybe it's just rage bait. Either way, I can't wait to fight." It's a statement that captures everything people both love and hate about him: his pride, his humor, and his unwillingness to play humble just to win over fans. But that wasn't his only headline-making comment this month. Nickal also claimed that former President Donald Trump personally wants him on the UFC's upcoming White House card set for June 2026, a historic event that Dana White has teased for months. Speaking with Ariel Helwani, Nickal said he'd already had a conversation with Trump after his appearance on Fox and Friends. According to Nickal, the former president called him up, offered encouragement, and gave him the green light to fight on the card. He told him, "Done deal." Whether that conversation actually happened or not, that statement poured gasoline on an already blazing social media fire. Nickal's polarizing image is nothing new. Since arriving in the UFC, he's carried himself with the swagger of someone convinced he's destined for greatness. That confidence, mixed with how aggressively the promotion has marketed him, has rubbed parts of the MMA fan base the wrong way. To some, he's the kind of blue-chip athlete the UFC should build around: young, American, outspoken, and talented. To others, he's an unfinished product who's been handed opportunities veterans had to grind for years to earn. As for his next opponent, Rodolfo Vieira represents the kind of test that could either rehabilitate or completely derail Nickal's hype train. Multiple-time world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Vieira has a ground game that rivals Nickal's wrestling in pedigree. For many, this matchup is as pure as MMA gets: an Olympic-level wrestler versus a world-class grappler. It's the kind of stylistic clash that fans of the sport's roots live for. The UFC's move to Paramount marks the start of what could be one of the most transformative eras in combat sports broadcasting, but not everyone is thrilled with how the promotion is choosing to introduce it. After Dana White's August announcement confirming the record-breaking $7.7 billion deal, the excitement around the UFC shift from ESPN to Paramount Plus has been building steadily, with fans curious to see how the new home will reshape the presentation and accessibility of the sport. The ESPN era has defined modern UFC coverage, from the Fight Night expansion to pay-per-view integrations. But with the contract expiring at the end of 2025, Paramount is stepping in to take over every UFC Fight Night and numbered card starting in early 2026. Subscribers will be able to stream events directly through Paramount Plus for around $8 to $13 per month, with major cards also airing on CBS, echoing the days when UFC occasionally found a home on broadcast television. To get the hype rolling, Paramount recently dropped a cinematic promotional trailer teasing the partnership, but the reaction online was mixed. The short clip showcased several of the UFC's marquee names in a dramatic montage that ended with the octagon morphing into Paramount's iconic mountain logo. The featured lineup included Israel Adesanya, Ilia Topuria, Jon Jones, Kayla Harrison, and Merab Dvalishvili, all recognizable figures but not necessarily the ones fans expected to see representing the next generation of the UFC. Within hours, social media lit up with reactions questioning the choices. Many were surprised to see Jon Jones featured so prominently after announcing his retirement earlier this year, while others wondered why current champions like Alex Pereira and Islam Makhachev were absent. The backlash ranged from disappointment to outright disbelief. Some fans mocked the inclusion of Adesanya, who has struggled in his last few outings, calling him washed up and out of place as a promotional centerpiece for 2026. Others pointed out the lack of representation for active dominant champions, especially those from the surging Dagestani contingent that currently rules several divisions. Comments like, "No Islam, no Potan, no like," and "UFC really using a retired Jon Jones and 03 Izzy to promote the future" captured the general tone of the online response. Even Conor McGregor's name popped up repeatedly, with fans noting his absence despite his historical role in driving mainstream attention to the sport. Still, the pushback wasn't unanimous. Some defended the UFC's creative direction, arguing that Adesanya remains one of the most recognizable faces in global MMA, and that Jones, regardless of his status, is a symbol of legacy and greatness that fits the cinematic tone of the campaign. "Izzy is still the face of the UFC. No one else has that star power," one fan wrote. Others echoed similar sentiments about Jones, viewing his inclusion as a nod to the promotion's history rather than its immediate future. What the trailer made clear is that Paramount and the UFC are betting big on star power, both past and present, to capture a wider audience as they transition into this new era. The deal is as much about branding as it is about distribution, and Paramount seems intent on framing the UFC not just as a sports property, but a blockbuster entertainment brand, the kind of content that can anchor its streaming service alongside major franchises. While some fans may have bristled at the choices, the discussion itself shows that the UFC's marketing machine hasn't lost its touch. It's still capable of stirring debate, driving attention, and keeping people talking. As 2026 approaches, all eyes will be on how the partnership unfolds, whether Paramount's sleek presentation and broader accessibility can match the cultural momentum the UFC built under ESPN. The mixed reactions to the first promo may just be the start of a larger conversation about how the UFC wants to present itself in its next phase, not just as a fight league, but as a global spectacle.